Namaskar and welcome to Sunset Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our budget special episode of Arthniti. Now, today we're going to talk about the Northeastern region. Now, the Northeastern region comprises approximately 8% of country's area and accounts for around 4% of the nation's total population. The central government has made development of Northeast a major priority by focusing on various aspects including peace, power, tourism, 5G connectivity, culture, natural farming and sports, etc. etc. Now, for improving railway connectivity to the region, more than 50,000 crore rupees have been spent since 2014. Similarly, for improving road connectivity, 375 projects worth 1.05 lakh crore rupees are underway. Air connectivity has also improved massively, with the number of airports in the region going up from 9 to 17 in the last 8 years. Now, waterways are an integral part of the life and culture of Northeast, and 20 of them have been declared as national waterways in the past few years. Promotion of tourism in Northeastern region is also a high priority focus sector. So, how has the development story in Northeastern region moved ahead so far, and what are the expectations and likely focus areas in this year's union budget? We'll have a detailed discussion on this, and we're joined by a panel of distinguished experts. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Mr. R.R. Rashmi is here with us. He's the former Chief Secretary of the state of Manipur. We also have with us Sandeep Phukan in the studio, senior journalist who keeps a close watch on the developments in the region. And Dr. Amya K. Sharma is also joining us, economist and executive director of Rashtriya Gramin Vikas Nidhi from Assam as well. Welcome to you also, Dr. Sharma. I'll begin with you, Mr. Rashmi, and let's start by first understanding, the scope as well as what has been done so far when we talk about Northeastern region. The Northeastern states, you've been at the helm of affairs at one of these states. How has the journey moved along all these years since independence?
Thank you very much for having me on your show first. You look at the entire Northeast, the two biggest problems of the Northeast are employment of the younger generation and the economic potential of the region, how to enhance that potential and actually translate this into output. Now, the education, the output in terms of education has certainly increased, and the infrastructure also has improved, but both of them have really very, very large constraints even now. The younger generation which has got education has done it, the quality education has come entirely mainly from outside. I have seen myself, when we went to the state, the people used to study within the state, in Assam, Guwahati, within Imphal, but large number of them started migrating outside, and they got the best quality education. They are coming back and they are actually wealth creators in the state. So there is a transformation because of these young educated people now. So there is a larger degree of awareness, enthusiasm, dynamism in the society because of these young people. But the infrastructure is still at a very rudimentary stage, and that needs to be enhanced.
Okay.
And economic potential of the wealth creation, that also has to be changed so that employment increases. Now, the two important areas are forest, agriculture, and of course it's entirely hilly region. So the connectivity. So these are, I think, the important areas where we should focus.
Broader focus areas there, and we'll talk about all of them one by one. Let me first bring in Sandeep here on this aspect which Mr. Rashmi was mentioning in terms of the changes happening, positive changes happening vis-a-vis the level of education, the level of employment opportunities, entrepreneurship as well. People of the region showing not only promise but also capitalizing on that promise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this has been an ongoing process. Over the years, we've seen a lot of people, it's a fact that many of us have actually migrated or settled down, but many of us have also gone back to the northeastern region, and they in turn have become change agents. Two things stand out in the recent past. One is, I think, the development, as sir was saying, connectivity is a big problem. So, in terms of connectivity, there's been a big push, a push to infrastructure, better roads, rail connectivity. Today, almost all the states are connected by the rail network. But having said that, I mean, there is still a long way to go. I mean, and partly it's because of the topography, partly it's because of the geography, hilly region. So there are challenges. Weather could be a challenge, but by and large, there has been a lot of focus on infrastructure. In fact, if I recall, just last year, there was a separate, in addition to the central schemes, there was a separate PM Divine project that was launched in keeping with PM Gati Shakti. PM Divine stands for Development Initiative in the Northeast, DEVINE. So that acronym essentially where the states could pitch their projects, and from health facilities like Cancer Hospital in Assam to building a bypass road in Aizawl. So several other sort of elements are there. So under that umbrella, you could, from improving health infrastructure to physical infrastructure like roads, all this is possible.
Okay.
So there is certainly a focus on infrastructure, because remember, accessibility, connectivity, if these things are not there, then it is going to be difficult to work on other things like, getting investors.
Indeed.
I mean, more can be said by Dr. Sharma, who's a distinguished
exactly.
economist.
We'd like to bring in Dr. Sharma here. Dr. Sharma, realizing the economic potential, and then first, understanding the economic potential as well is equally important to understand, which areas of the northeastern region can come up with that sort of economic contribution in a particular sector or in a particular way. So first realizing that, and then building upon that and ensuring that the economic potential gives us or the region rather, that benefit. So where do we stand as of now in terms of the work which has been done so far, and what can be done further?
I think, as Sandeep was saying, the PM Divine is a good way of adding to the program that we have. And earlier, the implementation of the programs was a big problem. But I think good monitoring as well as the direct implementation, direct handholding would be a good idea. But in terms of potential, see, the thing is that except the PSUs, I think private huge investment will not really, something that we would be looking forward to, and also something that will be coming. Our agri-horticulture is the best thing, but the potential in terms of, when you said of connectivity, I'm looking at soft skill that, for example, the producers are producing, but then they're not going out and also for export market, because the local people have no knowledge of how to export things, and even the paperwork of movement itself, physical movement itself from one state to the other. I think that some of the barriers are by the state police themselves, that when it moves from one state to the other, there are some farmers who are complaining about this. So within the Northeast, we also have problems. It's not that the center versus or the other rest of India versus Northeast. Within Northeast, I think we need to have much more better coordination. So I would say that the donor and other institutions should be set up so that within Northeast, the potential can be realized, and that has to be done through better coordination. And second thing is that the youth, as Mr. Rashmi was saying, people are going out, some of them are coming back, but why not have more institutions here? I think looking at the one, not only the education hub, but also, for example, things like music. Now, musicians from the Northeast are doing so well. Sportsmen from the Northeast are doing so well. But however, within the Northeast, we do not have a really huge infrastructure for bringing the sportsmen from other Northeastern states to an area. Could be near Guwahati, could be somewhere between Guwahati, Shillong, etc.
Okay.
Giving it a hub, sort of the idea. And also musicians, Now, most of the music is not an industry here, so people hardly get a loan for any musicians. They cannot get loans for the instruments. But we know in Bombay and other areas, the Northeast musicians are doing so well. So let's give push to that. So these are actually thinking outside the box, not just traditional that industry, agriculture that we need. Why not go for making it a health hub, health center? Because a lot of people from the Northeast go outside, and these days doctors from the outside, they come here, they come in the morning, go back after the operation in the evening. Now that could be made a proper, a focus area so that then doctors come here. But there could be somewhere next to Guwahati. I'm just looking at Guwahati, maybe because I'm from Guwahati, but I'm looking at Guwahati as a center of the Northeast.
Okay.
And from there, actually, to the periphery, it can move. But medical, the aims will come up. A lot of patients go out from here. The
Okay.
cancer, the Ratas have, thankfully, they have come here to actually, because a lot of cancer patients are here. So that hub, medical, engineering, music, sports, these things, and then agri-horticulture
Okay.
with the
Okay, so the
logistics.
crux, Dr. Sharma, which you're pointing out is that, of course, infrastructure and connectivity is equally important, but we'll have to think out of the box as well. Mr. Rashmi, you've served there in the region, We would like to understand two aspects, as Dr. Sharma is pointing out. One, thinking out of the box, of course, looking at the key strengths of the region. Some of them pointed out by him: sports, culture, music, perhaps, other traditional, health medicines as well, which are available there. Perhaps some such smaller industries which can come up. Also, the administrative mechanism, the coordination, which Dr. Sharma is referring to within the Northeastern region.
Right. As far as the out-of-the-box solutions are concerned, he's right in a way that we can certainly think of Northeast coming up as a hub of new kind of education, health, and then the human capital is of a great quality there. I mean, compared to the rest of the country, I have seen the younger generation is absolutely, they are cut above the rest of the younger generation in the country. So they can be certainly used profitably, and they can be a great asset. So we certainly need to promote these solutions. I mean, health facilities can be created, but the issue is that of investment. Who will invest in an uncertain situation? Only the government can come in. So government obviously has to play the major role there, and government is doing as much as it can through many of the programs. So first is the question of mobilizing investment in that region,
Okay.
in the right, and then obviously the private sector will come in only when there is a certain degree of returns there, profits there. So they need peace, assurance of returns. And so we need to mobilize both public and private sector for this purpose. And I think apart from the out-of-box solutions in the tourism, health or education, we also need to look at the conventional capital, economic potential, which is there in the forest, in the horticulture. We can convert the entire region into an organic products region. The horticulture gardens can come up, and forests can be utilized to create carbon sinks which can benefit the rest of the country, and we can meet our climate goals. So we can also look at the conventional sectors and use them profitably.
Okay.
We need programs for that.
Okay.
Now you talked also about the coordination within the Northeast. Obviously we have a mechanism called NEC, as you know, and all the resources are currently funneled through the NEC. We need to certainly look at this NEC as a viable institution. It currently lacks trust. The states don't trust the NEC because there is not enough. It doesn't have enough credibility, and its funding is very small.
Okay.
So we need to create a large institution which can create trust and also help the states in building the infrastructure.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's simply an appendage of the Ministry of Donor.
Okay. Okay. Interestingly, making sure that the trust is a major factor there. But you also mentioned the other part, which is equally important. That's peace and stability. Now, Sandeep, I'd like to bring you in here. All these aspects which we're discussing about infrastructure, connectivity, thinking out of the box as well. Mr. Rashmi put it right that the investment and infrastructure, all this will happen if there is a peaceful situation there. In terms of bringing peace to the region, because some of the areas have known to have armed skirmishes or armed organizations as well. Where do we stand today, and what's the road moving ahead?
Well, most certainly, I think that's a given. I mean, that's a non-negotiable sort of aspect of any development process or any investment scenario, that first you must have a stable government, a government that can act firmly, deal with law and order. Yes, you know, outside the Northeast, when in other parts of India, when you talk about the Northeast, you know, often you throw up the images of a disturbed region, of militancy. But trust me, that's not entirely true now. I mean, you know, if you go to any of the cities of the Northeast or towns in the evening, you know, it's as peaceful or it's as eventful or as quiet as any other part of the country. There has been, I mean, you know, from the 90s when we were students till now, there has been massive improvement in terms of peace accords going down, I mean, you know, surrendering of militants. The government of India has taken proactive, the current government as well as the previous 2 tenures of the UPA, all of them have made a sustained effort to arrive at peace talks with different groups. Currently, I mean, as we speak, Nagaland is going to polls, and there is a ceasefire with the biggest Naga groups there. In Assam, the centre has signed tripartite agreements with all the Boro groups. So there has been a phenomenal sort of improvement in terms of law and order and stability as well.
Okay.
There's no doubt about it. I think what Dr. Sharma was mentioning about lack of coordination, there are 3 things, Vishal. Let's understand that because you know, Northeast has a certain geography, you cannot have any kind of industry there, you know. So, and there are some industry which have been going on since the 19th century, and they have been very successful. I mean, we've had the earliest oil refinery, petroleum refinery in Digboi. The tea industry is known all over the world. So it's not as if that there are no industries. I think what economists like Dr. Sharma is referring to, or what sir was saying, that you have to find out what is the potential of the place, you know, what works best for the place. Horticulture, you know, you have lovely flowers there, but I think challenge is that if it's grown in Meghalaya, let's say, so the nearest airport would be Guwahati. I mean, there is an airport in Borapani in Shillong, but the in terms of economy of scale, it would make sense to airlift. So the connectivity has to be very good. You bring in a couple of hours, you pluck the flowers, you preserve them, you bring it to the Guwahati airport, then you export it, or you send it to other parts of India from where there is export potential. In fact, there is export potential. Guwahati is an international airport. There is export potential from there also. So you have to develop that chain. Earlier, what would happen is there will be, and sir can vouch for it, there would be, you know, some group will call a bandh, and there will be a strike for days on end, you know, weeks on end. Trucks will get stuck.
And that grinds to halt the entire economic process.
Completely. So, so if suppose a truck carrying consignment of flowers gets stuck for 4 days, you know, your flower is gone. It's finished.
Consignment is gone.
It's finished. So, so that is why it is so important to have stability, to have no conflict or a minimum conflict. I mean, you cannot completely wipe out conflict, but as little as possible, and connectivity, so that, you know, from start to finish, everything happens in a time where there is no economic cost to the producer.
Okay. Since you mentioned, you know, from 90s onwards to now, Mr. Rashmi would have been, you know, just like you were a young student there, Mr. Rashmi would also have been a young officer there on the ground. Mr. Rashmi, from your viewpoint, how do you analyze, you know, the progress from there onwards? We're talking about specifically ensuring peace and stability in the region, because that, as Sandeep was referring to, is non-negotiable when we're talking about development, investment, and whatever kind of infrastructure or connectivity aspect we are looking into.
No, indeed. There is absolutely no doubt that there has been a sea change. Since the time we went to the state and now, there is a dramatic change. As far as this region is very stable, very peaceful. As he was mentioning, the days of blockades are over. But there is always an apprehension that it might come back. That you need to actually issue these issue. I mean, these issues need to be settled once and for all, so that we don't suffer those situations again. So that is the real issue. But there is absolutely no doubt that the infrastructure has improved.
Okay.
You talked of air connectivity. I mean, today there are at least 10, 12 flights every day to Imphal.
From
a place
9 airports to 17.
Yes. And when we went to the state, it was just 1 or 2 flights a day. So connectivity has improved. But that is not to say that nothing needs to be done now.
Okay.
It still needs a large quantum of degree of change as far as connectivity in terms of movement of cargo and goods is concerned. That needs to be done, and because that is what kind of assurance which this region needs.
Okay. The last round of question to all three of you. I'll start with Dr. Sharma there, and since you're talking about what needs to be done, you're also referring to it. Dr. Sharma, in terms of when we're looking at the union budget specifically, is it more money which is required, or is it the adequate amount of money is already allocated, but perhaps the allocation pattern and the spending pattern and decision on where that money should be spent, better coordination as you are referring to, which is required right now?
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I think it's not really the more money. It's just that I think the better coordination and the areas that need to be spent, and also the timeline for spending. I think that has to be ensured with a proper organization on ground. For example, if you say something out here, let's say, in fact, I would think that the Minister of Donor could have an office in the Northeast here itself, in Guwahati or Shillong, because again, for better coordination. See, the movement is one thing, but when you have something as close as, just walking distance or even taking a car there, it makes a lot of difference. Although, we say that, okay, in this age, we don't need really the physical distance, don't matter. They matter a lot. And I was talking about the movement part. The movement of people by flight is completely different from movement of goods. So what we need is, see, perishable goods like agriculture, horticulture products. We don't have any person yet from the Northeast who actually know the logistics, how to send things from here. So farmers are producing, but there's nothing. So somehow, if the government could promote such logistical as well as education for the people, the handholding of the farmers so that they can actually export the stuff. Agriculture, horticulture, it's a really lot of improvement. But also another thing I would like to point out.
Okay.
Just because you want to make the Northeast, infrastructurally really efficient and also better, we cannot do things haphazardly. For example, when the railway track was last time, busted by the floods, a lot of people we started talking about it. Maybe we need to hold on and see how best to do it, not how fastest to do it.
Okay.
How best to see, put infrastructure project, etc. on ground so that, we live with the nature, because Northeast is actually, very fragile, the whole
Indeed,
physical
the
area.
topography and geography
So
of the region will also have to be kept in mind. Dr. Sharma, you're right, and those concerns there. In terms of, the same question, Sandeep, but in a different way, I'd like to ask you. Also, looking at it from the other angle, that 3 states are going to polls now. The union budget, more funds, perhaps, more schemes to be announced and all that. What is it that you would expect?
Well, to begin with, the finance minister will be constrained not to announce anything state-specific, at least in these states, because the model code of conduct is in place, and she cannot announce schemes specifically for Tripura and Meghalaya and Nagaland. But if you were to ask me, I would say that for me the priority would be like, as Dr. Sharma was saying, there are many areas where we excel. Services sector is, as sir was saying, that quality of human resource is very good, and services, I mean, in every hotel industry, I can almost bet that you will find somebody from the Northeast serving any part of the country in the hotel industry. So services sector is, let's say, one area. So you identify, instead of just throwing money, you identify the areas where you want to focus on. You train them, you upskill them, you also help them, as Dr. Sharma was saying, that producers, farmers are producing their goods, but they don't know the logistics to export or to send their products, and perishable commodities just get wasted, or else they have to resort to distress selling. So rather focus on areas that create employment, that harness local resources and local talent,
Okay.
and do hand-holding until such time where they come on their own.
Okay, okay. Mr. Rashmi, in your terms, and in the way you would have analyzed, because you would have dealt with a lot of schemes, budget allocations, various projects, various aspects as well. Is it the question of more money, or is it the question of spending it wisely in ways, as with Sandeep and Dr. Sharma and you yourself have been pointing out, that there are aspects which will have to be focused upon, looked into before embarking on a project or before putting money in a particular sector?
I fully agree. I mean, there is no dearth of government programs or schemes for any sector. I don't think we need to multiply or replicate new programs. All we need to do is to focus them and, as you said, spend wisely with clear outcomes and impacts. That is what we are not doing. I mean, governments are only doing expenditure budgeting. They are only monitoring the expenditure. They are not monitoring the outcomes and the impacts. So we need to redesign these programs in a manner that we are able to index them with clear outcomes.
Okay.
And unless those outcomes are achieved, the funds will not flow, or somebody will be held accountable. And obviously, these northeastern states are also financially stressed states. So we cannot really stop the flow of the funds, because ultimately then the entire administrative structure comes under a stress.
Okay.
So funds flow will have to be regularly maintained, but at the same time, outcomes must also be ensured. We have to find good and imaginative ways of doing that.
Okay, okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Rashmi, Sandeep, and Dr. Sharma as well for sharing your views and insight with us and our viewers. As our experts were pointing out, of course, there is a lot of potential when we're talking about the northeastern region. Various ways in which the region can, help itself economically and make larger contributions to the Indian economy as well. It is not a question of more money to be spent, as our experts are saying. It's a question of spending the money allocated wisely and in a manner which ends up giving results. The outcome has to be positive. We'll keep a close watch on what happens here on the northeastern region and the funds to be allocated in the union budget and various other aspects as well, and keep on bringing you all the detailed discussions on this and on the budget day as well. Keep watching Sunset Television. Thank you.